Welcome to my podcast. I'm Heimo Scheuch, the CEO of Wienerberger, and today I have a special guest, Klaus Umek, a senior investor not only in Austria but also especially in London, by the way. And Klaus, I'm glad to have you here at Wienerberger's head office.
Thanks for having us. Hello.
Klaus, you know Wienerberger for a long time, don't you?
Yes, I started my career as an investment banker at GoldmanSachs, and one of my first transactions was Wienerberger Koramic, which was how you guys and the previous management got into Benelux.
And also in the roofing tiles, by the way. Not only facing bricks, but then later roof tiles. So a very critical transaction for us to diversify our business and to make us a stronger European player.
It makes me feel old because this is 25 years ago.
You're still young.
I'm trying.
But still invested in Wienerberger.
Still invested in Wienerberger, and actually quite proud of what you guys have been able to achieve.
I think for you as an investor, ESG plays an important role. Do you think that we in Europe overdo certain things when it comes to ESG, or are you happy what the regulation foresees for all of us?
I'm a weird man in that I generally believe regulation is very good, because I think those who think they can do without regulation will always face, the public, God, and whoever. So you're never going to be without anyone that tells you what to do. I think as long as it's intelligent, it will mean that you think, you reflect, you will be more intelligent about your choices. And I think ESG is at the core of what Europe is very good at and how we differentiate from other economies, like especially the United States or Middle East, where people just do ignore certain topics that we find important. And to me, there is no inherent conflict between someone who's very frugal and saves and makes sure that stuff is efficient, which is a very Germanic thing historically, and someone who's very ecologically driven, wants things to be clean and safe and not too much wasting space. It's to me the same. If someone is a socialist, says it has to be fair, you cannot treat people badly. In the end, a capitalist would say if it is smart, it is profitable, and then it's fair, and then it is green, and then it is thought through, and most cases it is frugal. So I think ESG is an important driver for our economies going forward.
Well, I can only confirm you know that, and we're very well aware at Wienerberger we have focused a lot on this, and especially when you talk about our values, respect and trust are very important ones, and we live it in our company for more than 19,000 people and also with our stakeholders. And good communication is also, from a perspective of shareholder and company, very important, and I appreciate that you accompany us in this sort of transition to a very sort of top-notch ESG based company. You have seen that we have been awarded a couple of days ago by EcoVadis a top-notch sort of result from the perspective of ESG.
Congratulations,
and I hope you appreciate that. And yes, I can confirm it pays off. And even in the US, by the way, which takes a different perspective from ESG, but I would say also an interesting one.
I think it just always gives you a reason to focus on something, because if times are bad, people are looking for an anchor, right? And they don't really know what to do. So you can check your numbers, you can check whether everyone is happy, whether you are doing the right things. And ESG is such a revisiting factor where you say, okay, well, are we doing well? Could we do better? And I mean, we all sat here during COVID. I came to visit you, and it was very, empty office. And then, of course, as a manager, you think, oh my God, we just moved into a new office. Was this the right decision, right? And in times like these, it sounds weird, but you have doubt. You feel the environment is blowing in your face, which of course it is always only very temporarily, because you guys have always come out with dynamic ideas and then entrepreneurship very fast. And it's in times like these that you say, okay, how do people do? Are they happy? What can we do for them? How can we retain them? They're now sitting at home. If they don't have a palatial home, they might have an issue, right? And you were the first to say, hey, anyone wants to come, let's separate. All these things are very smart. And I think in the end, that is ESG, right? Because S, socially, it has to deal with how we deal with society, whether we care for our employees, whether we have employee participation. You have a very smart incentive program, to me, again, purely purely capitalist, but it is ESG because people are happy, they have a stake. We are invested in a number of companies where people generate substantial extra wealth because the company does well and they have stock in the company. And that makes them happy, and that's S, amongst many other things. Obviously, sponsorship, caring for those who are not as fortunate as we are, which Wienerberger has at the core of its value set. I think it's extremely important that we give a bit away. I always joke that, and you're in a very nice part of town, but very few people have that luxury. Some are in like a beautiful office silo, and around them you have all these communal flats that are a bit run down 1950s, and they just have to step out and see what's going on really in the city. Very few people do that. So again, I think you guys are doing really well in understanding this.
No, thank you. And I think also when I talk with especially our young generation, what matters most for them is the purpose, that we obviously as a company serve a good purpose in helping people to create affordable living space on one side, but also do something good for the nature, biodiversity, saving energy, and obviously effectively fighting against climate change. So these are things that matter at Wienerberger. There's one personal question that I wanted to ask you today. How is it for you as a professional investor in these periods of continuous crisis? You wake up in the morning and the whole good news that hits you every morning from the US, from Asia, from Europe. How do you deal with this, Klaus?
I would think that the history book will be written about a period, and it will of course mention COVID, and it will mention the war, and it will mention climate change that is becoming ever more apparent, especially for all those of us who like to ski, where it's ever later that we can start and ever more artificial in the beginning with the snow. That's all going to feature, but I don't think that will be the headlines as much as we think right now. I think what the headline will be is the speed with which information travels. And really for the last 10 years, the prevalence of mobile applications, social media, and obviously the percentage of people who have a smartphone has gone to, in cities to like 90%. And so everyone on their way to shaving or brushing their teeth is already bombarded with pre-selected articles that confirm their views. So that means that you and I will be reading Bloomberg and Financial Times and things that seem to want to worry us all the time about economics, about trends, about economic growth, inflation. And Joe Average will have a stupid Facebook algorithm that will tell him that if he's worried about immigration, he wakes up getting 5 articles about how the next wave of boat refugees has just landed illegally in whatever place. And the guy who's very worried about ecology will hear about the treatment of women in Iran, and will hear, they just will be confirmed in their worry. I don't think that that's very healthy because it is visible in how kids are unhappy right now because they had lockdowns and they missed out years, and now they are bombarded with this negative wave of information. I'm positive about the world. I think we're getting richer, we're living longer, we're healthier, people care about their weight. Sport has never been as important, food has never been as good. Choice, we are in a part of the world here in your headquarters that wasn't really known as a place to enjoy a good meal. That has changed. Within 5 minutes walk, we can have a poke bowl and a sushi and whatever it is that we please. So the world does get better every day, and we've made considerable amounts of money just staying focused on what the real trend is and not being told that we're all swamped by the wrong people and all unemployed and all dead from COVID, because it turned out to be just nonsense.
So what basically you are saying that you yourself make up your own mind and make up your own opinion about things, and you need to fight this damn media that obviously provides us with a lot of awful news.
I think it's the damn algorithm, not so much the media, because at the same time, independent media is shrinking at a pace that worries me. Independent journalism is dying out. People copy press releases. That's the sort of stuff you get from some of the best newspapers in this country. And, when we were kids, we would read about the Nicaragua Contra civil war, right? These days, kids would read the newspaper, which, of course, unfortunately, they do not, but they wouldn't even know where Nicaragua is on the map, because no one writes about any intelligent articles about European business, let alone things in emerging markets, I think it's extremely important that we read, that we, focus and concentrate and take a book, which is tough. We all know that. The first 30 pages, you're like, oh, do I really want this, right? I'm very old school. I read literature. I read factual information about economic trends, about finance, about sociology, about science, right? And that's very helpful because it gives us something to do away from our smartphones. And yes, I mean, we make money by trying to determine what the trend is. And then if we're right, we will be so much more profitable in the market, yeah.
Klaus, let's go back a little bit to financial markets. And both of us, I know from experience, you also are a convinced Austrian and you love Austria and Vienna especially. Our financial market is very small. We discuss a lot about the stock exchange here and the activity. There are some things that you miss when you talk about Austria and the Austrian financial market and the attitude that you sort of see really as a major weakness that we have currently?
I think it's down to the ability or inability for the last 20 years to find the new young people that have an interest. So when you look around and and I know this from our general meetings or so, it's kind of a pensioner's home. People are very gray. So those who participate are well past the peak of their careers, and there just seem to be too few young people interested. The young people we have are punting around Bitcoin, are interested in trading US dollar on Flatex. They trade Amazon. They're losing all their money on Tesla. So, I mean, people have unfortunately people did come out, but they didn't do enough to do things locally. And that has to do with how politicians have portrayed the whole thing. And it started with horrible Faymann government that just wanted to soak the rich and take it away and tax and increase taxation on stock transactions. And everything they did was just intent on making sure that this is less of a pleasure, less profitable, and that you would walk around the street feeling guilty. Now, they've been very successful. I think people sometimes feel very guilty. They feel very oblivious. They feel cool talking in the restaurant about, or the golf club or the tennis club about owning a Tesla and losing all the money with it, which they will never admit, but they would never feel that it's cool to own Unica or Wienerberger, which I think is what they should do. Yeah. I think Vienna has always been a financial center. There are a great percentage of the smart people in this town are bankers, lawyers, transaction people, and most of our industrialists are traders, right? They trade building sites, they trade wood, pulp, everything. So they call themselves industrialists, but they really buy stuff and sell at a higher price. But that's not the tone. So it's not yet cool at this point to be, because you're like a speculator, right? That's something bad. I think it's nonsense. I'm testament to how well we can do by just sticking to what we're good at, yeah, and not let anyone spoil that for us. And I firmly believe that stock markets are local. Yeah, I think that Wienerberger is a global company, but its heart is here. Its name is very Austrian, and you'd be feeling very lonely in a stock exchange like London because no one cares, right? Unless you're 35 billion, at which point you are too big to ignore. But I think for anyone that is a dynamic mid-sized company, a local market is where you should be. And I look at places like Belgium, Finland, Sweden that all have extremely dynamic capital markets. Again, my contrarian view is it's just a matter of time. Yeah, mind you, we had like one significant company come to market, which was BAWAG. There were others, but I mean, BAWAG was the most significant. It is by far the most interesting story in financials in Europe. So, testament to my view that we have financial people, we have banking people, we have transaction people. And, of the last 5 years, we'd like to forget some of the stuff that listed in Germany. And we certainly want to forget all the gold miners and coal diggers in London that listed. So, I think we shouldn't feel ashamed. It's pretty contrarian. There are not many people who do it, but I like it, yeah.
No, and you mentioned also some smaller markets like Belgium, but also like the Nordics. And I think when we talk about especially the Norwegian one, the Finnish one, and especially the Swedish one, I think what we can learn from them and the culture is transparency. I think this is good corporate governance, and I think you always put a lot of emphasis in your discussions with companies on it. And I think in Austria, we need certainly a step up in this respect. And also from the state, I think from our perspective, from the Vienna Stock Exchange, that the professional investment fund, the state one that would run the participation, like a Norwegian fund, for example, given it a more transparent approach, would help tremendously the financial community here.
Yes, I think that we are faced with a group of people in a lot of institutions that are very inwardly focused, that have the same circle of advisors and friends and influencers, and that is just not market, and I hate to say it, is very provincial, and that doesn't do us good. Yeah, you look at who the people are on the boards and how they still, pertain to being like a circle. And this is not something that I always want to tell people. Austria can improve, but so can any other nation in the world. I mean, same thing in Germany, right? It doesn't. You have these professional supervisory board cliques, and they have never done anything good to any of the companies. I find it important. I look at Wienerberger, how it's become very international, how it has become very focused on diversity. It's imperative that we have people that have a different horizon and not just guys that meet at the same restaurant and that go to the same hunting party and that do all the same things with all the same jokes. It just really means that you come in as a CEO and you're so focused on what to wear for the evening, and have you addressed the guy with his right title on the invite, which we've known has already been very bad for Austria when the dude who did this in Sarajevo cared more about the wine than the right car and protection for our emperor's next in kin, right? So I think we have a history of being too focused on the wrong things, and we should just always, pull ourselves together and be real.
But there are good examples that we are able to do that. And let's finish not on a typical Austrian sort of negative note, but a positive one. No, it's not so bad, I think. And if you look at Wienerberger, where you are heavily invested, I think we've made a big step ahead. This year, we are nearly approaching the 5 billion turnover. I think I remember the discussions.
Also approaching the 1 billion.
Also, I'm coming to that. Yes, indeed. And I remember the discussions with you about the growth, about the focus, and I'm actually a strong believer that this sort of good conversation, constructive dialogue is very important for every company, and I appreciate it highly. And this year, as you correctly say, we will also approach the 1 billion EBITDA. So it's on good track, and I look forward, obviously, to the good cooperation. Thank you for being here and talking with us, Klaus.
Thank you. Keep doing well. Thank you.
Thank you.